Hi everybody, I am Mike Pach, Three Peaks Photography. You may remember me from my Same Tree Different Day project. I spoke about that here, I guess about a year and a half ago. And I was preparing at the time to speak at the Canadian Mental Health Association conference in Toronto, which went very well. And I am also looking for more opportunities to give that presentation. Since that time, I've been published a few times, and that's one of my goals for this year is to be published more often. I want to really get the word out about the tree project and its messages. And unrelated to that project, Popular Science is on my list, so I should be hearing from them this week about a different article. But what I've been working on has to do with this really big word. Who knows what a sesquicentennial is?
I do now.
What is it?
Celebration of 150 years.
Celebration of 150 years. Okay, that is the correct answer, but the more important question is, can you pronounce sesquicentennial? So, I've been saying and spelling it for more than 2 years, so I've gotten pretty good at it. What I am working on right now is a then and now photography project to celebrate our sesquicentennial. And I have an exhibit that will open in July at Library 21C. It's an official part of the city's Sesquicentennial Celebration. And I also have been very busy lately making a book, and I have a very short video here to show you that is part of a documentary. My photography project is a celebration of the Colorado Springs Sesquicentennial. It's a collection of photos from archives. I'm taking those photos and replicating them somehow in the now. I'm so excited because this picture was at the top of my list for so long. Wow, look at this. Hey Hillary, look at this. One of the biggest challenges with these old locations is that a lot of them don't exist. That really became a fun aspect of this project, where I could look at a photo and say, okay, I know I'm not going to get this exact same thing. I can think of something else that has a tie to it. I'm here with my friend Patrick, and we were on the exact site on Tesla Hill where Tesla's lab was in 1999. Some of the photos that I found in my research that really struck a chord with me were photos of people. So in my project, I'm including people who are doing great things in our community because they're part of our history moving forward. One of the main goals of this project for me is to showcase the diversity of Colorado Springs. Here we go, ready, 1, 2, 3. When I first decided to do this, I thought, 150 years? No problem. There is a whole lot of history packed into 150 years. Now, every time I take a picture, I realize that I am recording history.
So cool.
Thank you. That is a segment of a documentary that has been made by a friend of mine, Jamie Hastings, of You May Clap Productions. She followed me around to several locations to get some footage. So hopefully you all recognize this guy on the left, Joe Palmer, our founder. And this is an example of the then and now. I couldn't get a now picture of Joe Palmer, so we have to settle for the statue. We recognize this guy, our friend James over here. James was kind enough to pose for one of my photos, so I really like what James is doing in the community, as do all of you. And in order to be part of my project, you had to be doing something great for our community. So I spent a lot of time focusing on people and showcasing them because they are part of our history moving forward. And you also recognize this guy, Mayor Southers, and that is Mayor George Birdsall, who is a very interesting character. Hopped a freight train when he was about 20 years old from Missouri, landed in Colorado City, ended up being police chief, El Paso County Sheriff, city council member, and mayor. So talk about an overachiever. Wow. Very interesting story. So I just wanted to give you a brief look at what I've been doing for the past 2 years. And it's been an interesting journey, especially with COVID. it really did affect me a lot because most of my business went away, 95% of my business went away. But the silver lining is that without having those responsibilities, I was able to spend a lot of time on this project, and I'm very proud of the work that has been done, and would like to see you at my exhibit. And my materials for my publisher, or the book, are with my publisher right now, so that's very exciting. Here's my contact information, and I guess that was good timing, right?
Excellent.
All right, guys, it's time for the question and answer segment. All right, I'm going to hand the mic to you, and Brandy, looks like you're the first.
So, yes. So, you had to do a huge pivot because of COVID.
Correct.
Some people in this room do not know who you are or what
Okay.
you really did before. So tell us about what you did previously before COVID and how this project kind of saved you.
Okay, so I don't know if everybody heard that, but Brandy's asking how I basically rolled with the punches with COVID and how things changed for me. So I'm primarily an event photographer. I also teach photography classes, and I do photography workshops, and all of that went away with COVID and the lockdown. So I, for the first couple of months, didn't really know what to do with myself, and I did have this project already scheduled, but after I navigated all the aid that was out there for us to get help financially, I really started digging into this project. And one of the challenges I had because of the lockdown was I had a lot of people photos on my list, and I couldn't do those. So I had to wait, and I did formulate an alternate plan, which I did execute during March and April, just to photograph buildings on our historic registry. But this project has basically been my full-time job for the past 18 months. And I am very grateful that I had this to work on. Otherwise, I'm not sure what I would have done. I may have had to give up my photography and do something else, which I definitely don't want to do. So did that answer your question?
It did.
Okay, great, thanks. Bob, you have a question?
Yeah, so are you tied in at all with the celebration that's, I would imagine, is still happening and going on, and are you tied in any way with the city and what they're doing?
I am, yes, thank you for asking. So my exhibit, which is on July 8th at Library 21C, is an official part of the Sesquicentennial Celebration. So there are a couple other big events, the Brew Festival on June 12th at Rockledge Ranch, and then the big party on our birthday, July 31st, downtown. And I have worked with the city to be part of that celebration. I got recognition from City Council January of last year through an official proclamation to be part of the celebration. I also, though, want to make it clear that I was not commissioned by the city to do any of this work. So I've not been paid to do any of this. I volunteered. It's what I consider my gift to the city, and it's a project that is very dear to my heart, and I think a lot of people will enjoy seeing the photos. Yes?
So the then and now, I'm sure recreating the now to be like the then was pretty difficult. What was the most difficult recreation that you made?
That's a good question. Most difficult recreation, James was easy. Although with James, I wanted to find a clothing store, but the closest I could get was a shoe store, so we made that happen. And that was part of my creative process, that I allowed myself that flexibility to not try to duplicate something exactly. And if I couldn't find something that really exactly fit, then I could at least use the connection and make something happen. I would say probably, I wouldn't say it was the most difficult replication, but the most challenging shoot I had was the Adamant Club on New Year's Eve. That my original plan was to photograph the group outside with the summit sign in the background, and we didn't get to do that because of the weather, and they were late arriving because of the weather. So we decided to just do a group shot inside, just to keep everybody safe and warm. But that day I was on the summit for 14 hours. So that was that was a challenge in itself, and I actually didn't want to go back this past New Year's Eve because I was still feeling the pain from that trip. That was 2019 into 2020. But when I found out that the mayor was going up to set off the fireworks at 9 o'clock, I managed to arrange to drive up with the mayor and get some photos at 9 o'clock, and then get some photos at Crystal Reservoir at midnight. So the photos that I took, one of the things that people don't realize just by looking at them is that I couldn't just pull up somewhere and take a photo. I had to plan things, I had to go to places several times to make sure the lighting was right if it was outside, and then coordinating with all the people and their schedules and things. So one of the other challenging shoots was with a group of Native Americans, and they were only available on Saturdays. And then it was one of my last shoots because we had to keep pushing it back because of the weather. We had a group setting up a teepee for us, and it couldn't be set up in the snow or the mud. And then we just had to keep pushing it back, and I was getting nervous because I was getting close to my deadline, but we managed to get it in. So thank you for the question. Yes, Brandy?
Tell us about your book. You didn't really, I mean, you mentioned that you have it going, but you just did a whole Kickstarter campaign and everything, so
Right.
tell us about that.
Yeah, so this wasn't supposed to be a sales pitch, right? So that's why.
Well, that's a huge achievement, being able to
Right.
get this done, and
Yeah.
so this project can come to life.
So as Brandy said, I did run a Kickstarter campaign for the book, through which I raised $14,000. Thank you. And through some outside investors, I raised another $11,000. So printing coffee table books is very expensive, and so I have raised enough to print at least 1,000 books. And I'm hoping to get some more investors within the next couple weeks so that I can push that up to 1,500. I really think that it's something that people will enjoy and people will want. And right now I'm working towards that goal. And the books will be available in June, just in time for the Brew Festival at Rockledge Ranch, and in time for my exhibit opening in July.
Can we pre-order?
Pre-order was through the Kickstarter, but if you really want to, we can make those arrangements, and you can come see me afterwards. So,
That's awesome.
okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes?
It's you.
Is it me? Oh, okay. As a Colorado Springs native, I've grown up here my whole entire life, and just in 40 years, I've seen so many changes in Colorado Springs. Did you catch, I saw a lot of black and white older photographs. Did you actually recreate or capture some of them, some from like the 70s or the 60s or 80s, 90s?
I think my youngest then photo is Motley Crue concert at the City Auditorium from 1984.
Nice.
I like that.
A friend of mine, another photographer friend, he used to write a review column for the Gazette, music review column, and he's photographed hundreds of concerts and performers, and he used to photograph at the City Auditorium. So when I found out about the concert, I asked him if he had any photos from it, and not only did he have photos, but I found the review he wrote in April of 1984, and when I showed it to him, his response was, "Holy shit!" So yeah, and And of course, I couldn't get Motley Crue out here to replicate the photo, but that was another way to use my creativity. So we used to have concerts there. Currently, it's used for the Pikes Peak Derby Dames, so I used to shoot the Dames, and I used one of their photos as my now photo. So I thought that was better than taking a photo of the city auditorium the way it's set up now with cots for people who, homeless people who have COVID. So, but it did also document some things related to COVID, because that's part of the story of last year and what I had to go through to complete this project. Brandy?
So now that the project is done, what happens for Mike now?
Oh, it's not done. I'm done taking the photos, but now I have to shift from being a photographer to being a book salesman. And so I'm booking speaking engagements and book signings. So I already have 2 lined up for June, and looking for more of those. I have a lunch and learn set up with the Pioneers Museum on June 23rd, and then I have a book signing at Garden of the Gods Visitor Center on Father's Day, June 20th. So looking to do more of those and trying to move at least 1,000 books.
That's exciting.
Yes. Any other questions? Yes, James?
I don't have a question, I have a comment and a place of gratitude. There's a book called The Hidden People of the Pikes Peak Region.
Right.
And it specifically talks about those individuals who have not been included. I want to thank you for taking the time in this work to include not just the dominant cast of individuals, but those individuals who completely contributed to this region. So thank you.
Well, thank you for mentioning that, and I will add to that by saying that was one of my major goals, was to showcase our diversity. And a family that you may have read about, the Stroud family, they're featured prominently in the book. They were very excited about my work, and were very, very generous with contribution that actually made the book happen. So they're one of the first African American families that settled here. And K.D. Stroud, the patriarch, moved from Oklahoma, knowing that General Palmer's policies on segregation were non-existent. He didn't believe in segregation, but unfortunately K.D. moved here a year after General Palmer died, and things changed. So he was a very educated man, but the only job he could get was shoveling coal at the Rock Island Roundhouse, which is our trolley museum. And the history of the family is just so amazing, all the things that they had to go through. And right now, there's family members spread all across the country, and many of them are leading very successful lives. And I was very, very fortunate to have connected with them and gotten their support. And one of the grandchildren of Katie Stroud told me that I'm now officially adopted into the family.
That's cool.
Come on, you guys, we're an entrepreneur support group. The way we can support each other is be curious. Ask these questions.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's next?
What's next? I still need to recover from this, so it's going to take a long time. I have spent basically the last 2 months, 12, 16-hour days sitting in front of the computer working on photos and writing the copy for my book, so I think I need a little bit of a break. But there may be a volume 2, because there's a couple of photos that I plan to have for my exhibit that I can't get until May, and those involve the new visitor center on the summit of Pikes Peak and the COG train, so they're not going to be open until May. So I'm keeping tabs on that to see how that progresses, and they've just announced that they're closing the highway so that they can tear down the old building, so that's pretty exciting. Bob?
So as an entrepreneur, I heard you say you took advantage of some of the financial help, some of the stuff that was going on. Talk to us a little bit about, did you benefit from that?
Yes.
What was your connections? Because a lot of entrepreneurs need, why should I apply for that? Or does that apply to me? So talk about how that's helped you through this project. I mean, it sounds like it did.
It really helped me. And one of the things that came to mind when I really started doing all this work. I mean, I'd done some preliminary work, but once I really started digging in, I was having so much fun that I thought to myself, boy, this would be really cool if somebody could pay me for the next year to do this. And that sort of happened because of all of the benefits I was able to tap into. One of the things that the governor said in the press conference early on was, we're paying you to stay home. And I'm like, okay, I'm cool with that. So I've been collecting unemployment, and I got an EIDL loan, and I also got a grant through the county. And then just recently I learned that I do qualify for PPP, even though I'm a sole proprietor. That was something that recently changed. So I'm like, I'll take whatever they're gonna give me. And it really has helped me maintain, because I lost 95% of my business and 95% of my income. So without that, I wouldn't have been able to survive, and I feel no shame about using those resources. I know some people think that they for some reason shouldn't do that or don't qualify or want to leave that for somebody else, which is perfectly fine. But for my situation, I really needed it, and it did help tremendously. And it allowed me to do this work without really trying to struggle to find other ways to bring in money.
All right, we got time for the super secret question. Super special.
Ooh, I even have a slide for that one too.
Oh,
because
do
I-
you? Nice! Okay, who wants to ask it? Looks like we got James here.
What can we do as a community to support you?
James, that is an excellent question, and I am prepared to answer it. So, you can connect me with shop owners or potential sponsors for my book project. So anybody you think would be interested in carrying my book in their shop, selling it retail, I do have wholesale opportunities. And April 3rd is my deadline for telling the publisher how many books I want printed. So I'm hoping that I can get a few more sponsors to push me to that next level. Attend my reception of my exhibit on July 8th at Library 21C. The mayor will be there to give his remarks, and I'm excited about that. And then consider hiring me to photograph your next event, or ask me to speak for your company or organization. I can do a presentation on this project, as well as my tree project presentation. Thank you.
Awesome.